Every sunrise was a wager, every decision a life or death roll of the dice. Welcome to the human gamble. Years passed. Fire, cooked meat, and ever-improving weapons brought abundance. Zath's group had grown, more hands, more voices, more hope. They felt powerful, invincible, but the Savanna knows no invincibility. It gives. Yes, but it always takes back. The sun began to burn differently. Day after day, the heat intensified, becoming a silent burden. The rain vanished. The grass withered, turning into yellow dust. The animals left. The world was changing dramatically, without the people truly understanding why. Zath touched the cracked earth, ground that refused to be alive anymore. Children tried to drink water from holes but found only dry mud. The place that once protected them, the cave, now suffocated them. It was stiflingly hot with no air, no humidity. Group members coughed, weakened. Zath knew if they stayed, they would die slowly. He raised a torch and extinguished it, symbolically. The old protection had become a prison. It was time to leave. What followed was a long trek through desolate landscapes, marked by white skeletons and the silence of the hot wind. Without water, the body failed. The mind darkened and hope crumbled. Yet the group was driven by a single faith. Zath knew where they were going. When a member collapsed from exhaustion or another begged to turn back, Zath raised them with calm gestures. No words, just his look, which said, "A little further, we must." Then on the horizon, a thin line of green appeared, and then the water, shining like liquid metal. A miracle. The group, drained of their last strength, ran. The joy was abruptly cut short. At the water, a multitude of living creatures, but their gaze was immediately drawn to a single, massive silhouette, the rhinoceros. A creature they had never seen before, a fortress of hide and horn dominating the bank. Terrified, they froze. Zath studied the terrain, searching for a path, but the accumulated strain, fear, and thirst were too much for some. As Zath tried to maintain control, a weakened member of the group, Caius, gave out. He collapsed not onto the sand, but onto a pile of dry, brittle twigs. The noise was sharp, grim, like bones breaking under a boot. It echoed through the oasis's silence like an arrow. The rhinoceros, alerted by the unfamiliar sound, turned its huge head. It saw not an enemy, but an immobile, indiscreet target. Panic consumed the group. There was no time for strategy, no time for thought. Before Zath could react, the rhinoceros charged. The group watched, paralyzed by horror, the brutal impact. Caius never stood a chance. The loss was swift and irreversible, a blood price for a moment of inattention. Their instinct took over. They fled, not back, but directly toward the only visible path to safety, the water. They threw themselves into the lake, swimming desperately. The rhinoceros reached the bank, roaring in frustration, striking the water, but it could not wade deeply. Looking into the middle of the lake amidst the waves created by their own panic, they saw it. The massive, dry rock, a small bastion of stone. They struggled, dragging themselves onto that rock, leaving behind not just a corpse, but a piece of their own humanity. On the rock, they drank, they washed, they were physically revived. The water saved them from thirst, but brought them to the brink of destruction. From this temporary refuge, Zath watched the bank. The animals were returning to drink. The rhinoceros was gone, but Caius's body and the bloodstains were clear evidence. Predators would not delay. The rock isolated them from terrestrial threats, but made them vulnerable to the new environment. The oasis was life. But life on this rock was merely an anticipation of the next danger. The water was not empty, and they were not alone. On the rock, the cold of night began to bite. The moon rose, casting long, deceptive shadows across the water and the distant shore. There was no fire, no light to chase away the darkness, only their eyes, tired and full of fear. From the shore, sounds began to emerge. At first, a subtle rustle through the dry grass, then a short, muffled quack, a hyena's distant howl, followed by a long, guttural moan. The savanna was reclaiming its rights. The night was a purgatory, a cruel lesson in loneliness and vulnerability. At last, the pale light of morning began to push away the shadows. The horizon glowed in a weary red-orange. The sounds faded. The immediate danger seemed to retreat with the darkness. Cautiously, Zath was the first to descend from the rock. The water was cold and clear. One by one, the others followed, their weakened bodies trembling with exhaustion and fear. They walked slowly. They reached the edge of the oasis where water met green. They were safe. Finally. But when they stepped into the heart of the oasis, they froze in place. It was not an animal. It was not a natural threat. What they saw froze the blood in their veins, awakening a primal fear, one they had no name for. It was something different, something that challenged everything they thought they knew about the world and about themselves. If you survived this chapter, join us for the next one. Don't let the fire go out. Like, share, and subscribe to The Human Gamble.